Hello, everyone, and welcome to ReelQuick, episode 118. Today, we're going to be doing a ReelQuick movie review of the week. This week's movie is Beautiful Boy, starring Timothy Chalamet, Steve Carrell, directed by Felix Van Groningen. It's a mouthful of a director's name. I haven't heard of any of your other movies, so I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. But this was suggested by two patrons, actually, and they've been going at it for weeks. They've been recommending this week after week, so perseverance paid off. We finally are reviewing it. James Magos and Dylan Chip, shout out to you two for recommending this one. It's just me and Cam this week. He is on a work trip right now, so he's on hotel Wi-Fi. Hopefully it works out well for him.
I think it's okay so far. We'll see.
Honestly, yeah, and the acoustics sound pretty solid in the hotel. So
alrighty, this is like the nicest hotel room I've ever been in. I have like a full kitchen and like a full living room. So that's kind of nice. I've never been in like a hotel room like that.
Yeah, is that a Town Place Suites?
No, it's just like a Marriott Inn, like just a regular.
Oh, okay, yeah,
but
nice.
like it's nice. So
yeah, nice, vibing.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it. The synopsis here is: after he and his first wife separate, journalist David Sheff struggles to help their teenage son, who goes from experimenting with drugs to becoming devastatingly addicted to methamphetamine. It's just a bummer of a movie, man. I know you call it cry porn. Yeah. I think it's just such a mom movie. Like I can totally see moms watching this, falling in love with the movie, crying to it.
Sure.
Well, speaking of that, I actually saw a tweet today that said, so Timothy Chalamet in an interview said that his mom said that Wonka was her favorite movie he's ever been in. But then she made him correct the statement because she said, no, it's her second favorite. Beautiful Boy is actually his mom's favorite movie he's ever been in. Interesting because his character, I feel like it'd be hard to watch your kid play a character like this in a movie. Yeah. Where it's someone who's violently and viciously addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a rewatch for you. This is my first time watching it. I'm going to see if I think both Seth and George have seen it before, but I'm trying to pull it up.
I know Seth watched it for this. I think George has seen it.
Yeah, Seth was intending on being here, wasn't able to, but he gave it a 3-star, and then George saw it a while ago and he gave it a 4-star. But Cam, what is your review on Beautiful Boy?
Yeah, I don't like this movie really at all. I gave it a 42 out of 100. 2 out of 5 stars. Like you said, I think it's cry porn, and I think it's a really shallow look into. And I know this is a true story, but I think I personally, like, when I watch it, I'm like, yeah, this is extremely sad, and it's a heartbreaking story, and it's a very hard story to tell with addiction, and it's like not something to take lightly in any way. But it just comes off to me like a lot of the hard parts of addiction seem to be brushed over because this movie like jumps around and the timeline like bounces forward and like he's getting better and then he's getting worse and then he's better, and you don't really see like I feel like it just brushes by a whole lot of like problems with addiction and like damage that it can cause and things like that. And there's a ton of emotion. I think Steve Carell and like amazing in this. I don't think anyone like has ever said Steve Carell can't act because all they've seen is like The Office or something. I think like it's pretty well known that Steve Carell is actually like a very good actor. And this specifically, he's fantastic. Timothy Chalamet, again, fantastic. Like, I'm not knocking any of the performances. I don't personally find this super heartfelt. I don't know what rubs me the wrong way with it specifically, but I just don't find it all that sincere. I think it's kind of a shallow look into drug addiction, and it's my opinion on it. It's not a perfect opinion by any means, but it's my thoughts. How about you?
Yeah, I also forgot to shout out. So shout out our patrons in general, because I watched this in a Patreon watch along with 9 of our other patrons. That's kind of my like. Cool. So yeah, pimp our Patreon. Check it in the description below. Go see what tiers you want to join. But we do monthly movie watch alongs where we all try and hop in. But I think just like a bonus, just for all patrons, anyone in the Discord, which is the very lowest tier of Patreon, so any patron can be on our Discord. Every weekend, I'm just like, you know what? I have to watch these movies for a real quick review anyways. I've just been jumping in lately when watching with the gang. So we all watched it. We had a little, cry boy session together.
Yeah, no, I like fully understand this movie will make you cry, and I get that, and it's sad. I don't like it.
No, I didn't really care for it either. I gave it, well, technically, since I don't do my decimals anymore, I kind of leave my real quick reviews to kind of just like whatever I'm feeling the morning of when I actually update it on Fridays. I'm like, what am I going to give it? I'm on the border of a 2.5 and a 3 on this one. Timothy Chalamet is good as ever in this, but Steve Carell, I think, definitely carries the show in terms of his performance is so good. And like you said, we all know that Steve Carell is incredible in dramatic works, like, what is that, Foxcatcher, Big Short,
Big
Vice.
Short's my favorite of his.
He's done so. What's a Little Miss Sunshine? Like he's done dramatic works more often than like a lot of people might think, and he's incredible at it. He's just as good as he is at the comedic works. Speaking of that, he's with Amy Ryan again from The Office. She's briefly in this movie, but another Holly Flax, Michael Scott reunion in this.
Are they married in real life or something like that?
No, he's married to his first girlfriend, the real.
Oh yeah, Jan, not Jan.
I know that. I thought it was Jan. What was her name?
No, it's shit. Don't tell me.
I know it's right on the tip of my tongue too. It's gonna come to us.
Okay, continue. Carrell. Yep, you nailed it. Good job.
Carrell. They are married in real life, but yeah. So I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I just feel like it wasn't. I don't know if it wasn't sincere, but it just seemed like it was very, just kind of just like almost. And I feel like it was a little too harsh to say it's like a chat GPT, but it's like I feel like if you were to say like make a movie about addiction and like a son trying to save or a dad trying to save his son from crippling addiction, I feel like this is kind of what the movie would be. I feel like it purposely tried to turk tears at the certain moments to try and make it, like you said, cry porn, but also I just didn't really feel like I cared enough about the characters. Like, I mean, I empathize with Steve Carell mainly because I know him as an actor and I try to put myself in his shoes, and it just seems impossible to think like if your kid's dealing with addiction, like you want to help them, but also, you extend that arm out time after time and time again. They just keep taking money from you. They keep going down the wrong paths. And it's like, at what point do you just say like, for your own good, you got to cut them off? It's just an impossible thing that I can't even think about. But it's also kind of something that I feel like, 4 Good Days from 2 years ago tackled this. I feel like kind of every addiction movie that involves the parents and the kid kind of has that same, struggle. I feel like there's not a lot new talked about here. Well, I guess the thing that is new, I've never seen a dad or a parent in a movie, or I mean, this is based on real life, shoot up hard drugs to be like, I wonder what this feels like for my kid. Like I need some first hand, or I need some primary data on this. Like I'm taking myself. That's wild move. But
crazy.
Yeah, I think the acting in this is just phenomenal. But that's really all I have going for it. I will say, actually, this is something we talked about after the movie ended. On the technical aspect, there's a lot of cool cinematography in this. The color grading looks really nice. The score is a little weird though. Like I think we just kept, in the chat on the side on Discord, like there'd be songs playing where it's like, this is either really over the top and like almost corny how like fitting the song is with what's going on the screen. Like I always find that really corny when like, like say like a couple breaks up and the man's walking away from the woman. It's like walking away from me or singing something like that. And like you're being too like on the, like you got to be a little more nuanced with your song choice. There's a lot of those. And some of the songs in general were just like, we just kind of kept chatting. We're like, this is like a really weird song choice. But cinematography, I thought was good. As far as the drama goes, similar to her, not the same level as her, but just similar in terms of what we talked about last week, where it's a drama. So you're not really expecting any great cinematography, but this had solid camera work. But yeah, I don't know. It was just like an actor's showcase that really showed off Timothy Chalamet and Steve Carell. But in terms of a narrative, it just wasn't all there for me and just didn't really connect fully. But I think the actors did the best they could given the screenplay they were given.
Yeah, and this movie is one of those where if someone gave it a 5-star, I'd be fine with that. Like it's not one of those where I think it's shit and I just really dislike it. I personally find it's a little cry porn, and it was only like, it feels like the only intention of the movie is to make you cry, honestly, rather than like, for me at least, rather than like tell any story about drug addiction and ways to get better. It just kind of, because every time he gets better, at least in the movie, he gets worse, and then every time he gets worse, something bad happens and he gets better for however long. And it's just such a roller coaster of a movie that it comes off to me a little bit like it's just trying to make you cry. Like you think it's this time he's going to be redeemed. And then he's not, which again, like it's one of those things we've mentioned it time and time again. It's a true story. So how far can you deviate? You can't really. And I still think you could tell this story, but I felt like there should have been a little bit more on like how to deal with drug addiction or how to help or what and maybe that's a bad take considering, like I said, it's a true story and you can't really deviate a ton. And maybe that didn't happen. And this is beat for beat exactly what happened with the real life. But I don't know, for movie purposes, I feel like you have to drive something a little bit more than the surface level of what was happening. But yeah, that and while I do think Timmy and Steve Carell are absolutely fantastic in this, this is never something like I'd throw Timothy Chalamet in as his like best acting performance, in my opinion. Like I'd take. Obviously he's one of the best actors of our generation. Don't get me wrong. Every performance he puts out, it's 10 out of 10. Like it's amazing. I just feel like in every other performance, I feel like he moves me more than in this. But again, I think it's one of those, like if you give this thing a 5 out of 5, 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3, anything higher than me, I don't have any issue with that because maybe it hit you really hard and you enjoyed, all the sad moments in it. And you're like, man, this shit's sad, because it is. But it's just, for me, it doesn't work. I don't really know a ton to get into with this one because, again, it's a true story. It's a lot of getting better and then getting worse. And then awesome to see that the real person is how many years sober now? It'd be a lot more than it was because this is like a 2018 movie, I think. So about 4 more than what it was. Great to see that he's better now. I wish we would have gotten that rather than a title card at the very end, like saying he's sober now. That's one of my biggest takeaways as well.
Yeah, it's like we don't want to downplay like how serious of an issue like addiction is.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like it's great that this film's showcasing it, but I also feel like, there's a lot of films that talk about serious issues, and that just because and I kind of felt this way about like a movie called Rustin, which is getting awards buzz for this year, that I was writing a review on today. It's like it's about the civil rights movement. It's like just because a movie's about a topic that's so important and should be spoken about doesn't mean like you automatically have to be like, this praise it and say it's a fantastic movie because it's like about a certain topic that you like should be talked about. It's like you can still do it in a good way or a bad way, and there still can be things you can have issues with. And for this, I just feel like it wasn't the greatest. Like I feel like I'm in terms of addiction, Requiem for a Dream like is a million times more impactful than this, and will stay with you forever. This is like a cry porn while you're watching it, but then you turn it off and it's not going to stick with you. Like Requiem for a Dream was like seared in my brain for weeks after watching it. So yeah, it's tough subject matter that's very important, and you should draw attention to it. I also think there's a little bit of like, I don't know, I don't want to say like fear mongering, but like we were joking about this in the Discord too. It's like, I don't know. It's just like one of those movies like your parents watch, and then like all of a sudden they start talking to their teenage kids like this this is what's happening. Like, he goes to a party, and then like at the party, like he finds a woman and they just start like shooting up together. And it's like, I just feel like that's such a scene where like a mom's going to watch that and then tell her kids to be like, no, you can't go to that party. Like all the kids are shooting up heroin and doing meth at parties these days. And it's like, yeah, that happens for sure. But like, I feel like a lot of this was just a little by the book talking about addiction for a kid. And again, like, shout out to Nick Chef for getting sober and telling your story. One thing I saw, just like there's not a ton of fun trivia or fun facts in this movie, but
I was looking it up.
The only one that I think is kind of funny is we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago how Charles Melton like gained 40 pounds from May, December, and we're like, damn, how do you still look so good? And you gained 40 pounds, and then Timothy Chalamet for this lost 18 pounds for his role as Nick Chef, and it's like
looks the exact same.
Yeah, sorry, man. Like you're just
You're just a twig, man.
Did not notice that at all. So, and the thing is, he was already so skinny going into it that he probably had to put himself through like some torture to get down to that weight. But it's like, man, I saw that fun fact. I'm like, I didn't look at him once. I was like, oh, he looks a little skinnier in this. Like, I just looked at him. I'm like, that's Timothy Chalamet. I don't know. He's just tough luck to lose 18 pounds and to have it be unnoticeable.
I didn't find like anything about like, is Nick Chef like a fan of this movie, or was he like involved in it? I'll look it up one more time, but I was looking at it earlier. and I didn't find like anything. So I don't know if this is something that like if this is even like his passion project or.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, all I'm seeing now is he's just like a writer and looks like probably like a public speaker telling his story. The
yeah,
screenplay
exactly.
though is based off. So like he wrote Nick Sheff wrote a book called Tweak, which is about his experiences as like tweaker, drug addict. But his father also wrote a book, Beautiful Boy, a father's journey through his son's addiction. So this film is kind of based on a combo of both, which is kind of cool. You have like the father's perspective in a book and the son's
Yeah.
perspective, and that's kind of what you see in this movie. I think you get more of the father's perspective, which makes sense. Like the movie's named after this same book, Beautiful Boy. But you still get the kind of the son's perspective a little bit, but I think it's mostly through the lens of Steve Carell, is just a father that just everything he does, he just feels so hopeless and then he has no control. But this is the director who took over this. This is his first ever English movie, so that's interesting.
I was looking at that. Yeah, I didn't know any of his movies that he's done before, and just reading a quick like Looper article, and Looper's by no means a super credible source, but just reading like a quick article, like Nick turned to sex work to fund his addiction. Nick almost lost his arm to an infection from a dirty needle. Like these are things we don't see in the movie that I feel like would have, and that's to me is kind of what makes it feel like it's a little surface level. Is it just like it doesn't paint the full picture of like how bad this addiction was, and also like this addiction went on for a decade. Obviously, like Timothy Chalamet, like it wasn't a decade shooting or anything, but it's just one of those things that it feels a little. I keep coming back to it, surface level, and just doesn't dive into the addiction like I think it should. And,
yeah, it just felt very safe.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not the one to talk about it. Like it's not something that's affected me, thankfully. But like, so maybe I shouldn't have this harsh of an opinion on it. It's just kind of like my opinion on the movie in general.
Yeah, I mean, I think with what they were trying to do, I think they did pretty much the best they could in terms of the actors and what they tried to put together, and the director in terms of how they put it together. I think the writing was just what suffered the most. I think, like I said, it was safe. It just didn't really want to use much teeth and really kind of sink his teeth into making a really strong statement any which way. But I see on IMDb, it says that this movie initially was going to be directed by Cameron Crowe, who I saw you just watch Almost Famous last night, I think. So she directed that. Jerry Maguire, We Bought a Zoo, and it says Steve Carell is going to be Mark Wahlberg. So it would have been a way different movie if we had Mark Wahlberg instead of Steve Carell. I think we're talking right now how this movie didn't really do like
shooting up, man. You fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't love it the way it was, but it would have been even worse if Mark Wahlberg was trying to be a serious.
I like Mark Wahlberg. I won't.
I do too. I just don't think he could pull off what Steve Carell pulled off in this movie.
He probably couldn't.
Anything else you got to say?
No, not really. I don't want to bash on it. Happy for Nick. Happy he's getting better and everything, but it's just I don't think this movie's all that great, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I think I'm going to give it like a 3, maybe 2.5. But like we both said, we can see why people would love this film if it impacted you personally, like in terms of if you had experience with this or someone. Obviously, this movie's going to hit you way different. And it's not one of those where like you watch it and you're like, how could anyone like this movie? Like it's very like I can clearly watch this and be like, this is like I can totally see this being someone's cup of tea.
This isn't like
a 4-star movie.
This isn't like fucking I don't even know, like Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, where like I rate it low, and if I see someone gives it a 5 out of 5, I probably might think like, you're an idiot. This is not a 5 out of 5 movie. This movie, if I see someone give it a 5 out of 5, I'm like, okay, I can understand that. That's
right.
Fine. Also, if you like Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania, whatever. I don't actually.
You do. You like what you like. But I don't care. We've reviewed far worse films on ReelQuick. I mean, we've had Food Fight. We've had a Chris Evans one. So, Beautiful Boy, not for everyone. It wasn't really for us, but it's definitely for some people. Great acting performances, but not a whole lot more from us. And seems like George was the highest. He gave it a 4 star. Seth gave it a 3 star. But that's it. And then Cam, you give it a 2.5 or 2.5 or a 2 because he said 42 out of 100.
42 out of 100.
42 out of 100 from Cam, and then a 2.5 star from me. So that's our review of Beautiful Boy. Let us know down below if you're one of the people that ended up liking it a lot or if it's just not quite your cup of tea. And with that, we will see you on Monday with ReelTok episode 66, I think. Peace.
Hell yeah.